Deep in the whispering forest, where shadows danced with moonlight, lived an old woman named Mira. After losing her kin to time's cruel hand, she sought solace in a quaint wooden cabin, nestled among ancient oaks and ferns. The world beyond was noisy, but here, silence was her companion. Mira's days were simple. She gathered wildflowers, brewed herbal teas, and hummed tunes to the wind. The forest, alive with chirping birds and rustling leaves, seemed to listen. Mira's heart, though heavy with loss, found peace in this solitude. Her cabin, adorned with dried herbs and woven rugs, glowed warmly at dusk. She wasn't truly alone. The trees whispered secrets, and the stars kept watch. Yet, rumors of her quiet life reached greedy ears. Bandits, roaming the forest's edge, heard of an old woman living alone, an easy target for their wicked plans. One chilly evening, as Mira sat by her fire, a faint rustle broke the calm. Not the usual deer or owl, but something heavier, human steps. Her heart quickened, sensing danger. She didn't know that 5 shadowed figures, armed with knives, crept toward her home. They smirked, thinking her defenseless, unaware of the bond she shared with the forest's hidden guardian. Mira's eyes scanned the darkness, her hands steady despite her fear. The bandits were wrong, she wasn't alone. Something stirred in the underbrush, watching, waiting. The forest held its breath. Mira's cabin glowed softly, a beacon in the dark forest. The bandits, cloaked in greed, slunk closer, their boots crunching on fallen leaves. They whispered plans of theft and worse, certain the old woman was an easy mark. Their leader, a scar-faced man named Drogan, sneered, gripping his blade. "She's alone," he hissed. "No one will hear her." But the forest knew better. Years ago, Mira had found a starving wolf pup, tangled in thorns, its silver fur matted with blood. She freed it, nursed its wounds, and shared her meager meals. She named him Kale, meaning guardian, in the old tongue. Now grown, Kale was no ordinary wolf. His eyes gleamed with intelligence, and his loyalty to Mira was fierce. He roamed the woods but never strayed far, sensing her every mood. That night, Kale lay hidden in the underbrush, his breath steady, ears pricked. The bandit stench, sweat and malice, reached him. His muscles tensed, but he waited, silent as death. Mira, inside, felt his presence. She didn't speak, but her heart called to him, a bond forged in trust. She placed a hand on the door, whispering, "Kale, my friend." The bandits reached the clearing, their shadows long and menacing. Drogan raised a hand, signaling the attack. They didn't see the amber eyes glowing in the dark. Kale's fur bristled, his growl low, vibrating through the earth. The forest seemed to tighten around the intruders, its branches clawing at their cloaks. They laughed, oblivious, thinking the night was theirs, but Kale was ready. Mira was not alone. The moon hung low, casting silver light over Mira's cabin. The bandits, emboldened by the quiet, crept closer, their blades glinting with cruel intent. Drogan, their leader, motioned to 2 men to circle the house, while he and the others approached the door. They believed Mira slept, unaware, an old woman defenseless in her solitude. The forest, however, was awake, and Kale, the wolf, was no mere shadow. Inside, Mira's heart raced, but her hands were steady. She'd lived long enough to trust her instincts and the forest's whispers. Kneeling by the hearth, she stoked the fire, its crackle masking the faint growl outside. Kale crouched in the ferns, his silver fur blending with moonlight. His eyes locked on the bandits, tracking their every step. He sensed Mira's calm resolve, their unspoken bond a tether stronger than steel. Drogan raised his fist to smash the door, his men grinning with anticipation. They imagined gold hidden in the cabin, perhaps even secrets of the forest which they'd heard tales of. But as Drogan's hand fell, a snarl tore through the night. Kale lunged from the shadows, a blur of fangs and fury. His leap caught the nearest bandit, pinning him to the ground with a terrified scream. The others froze, their bravado crumbling. Kale's growl echoed, deep and primal, as he stood over his prey, eyes blazing. Drogon cursed, raising his knife, but the forest itself seemed to turn against them, branches snapped, winds howled. Mira opened the door, her silhouette framed by firelight, unafraid. The bandits hadn't expected this. She was not alone. The bandits stumbled back, their faces pale under Chaol's fierce gaze. The wolf stood tall, his silver fur gleaming in the moonlight, a guardian born of the wild. Drogon, gripping his knife, shouted for his men to regroup, but fear cracked their resolve. The pinned bandit whimpered, Chaol's paws heavy on his chest, fangs bared inches from his throat. The forest seemed to pulse, alive with unseen eyes watching the intruders. Mira stepped onto the porch, her shawl wrapped tightly, her eyes sharp as flint. She didn't speak, but her presence commanded the night. "Leave," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of the forest itself. Drogon laughed, a hollow sound, and lunged toward her, blade raised. But Chaol was faster. With a snarl, he sprang, knocking Drogon to the ground. The knife skittered into the dirt, the other bandits hesitated, their courage unraveling. One swung a club at Chaol, but the wolf dodged, swift as wind, and snapped at the man's arm, drawing blood. Screams broke the night as the bandits scrambled, their plans shattered. Mira watched, her heart steady, trusting Chaol's strength. Their bond, forged through years of quiet companionship, was unbreakable. Drogon scrambled to his feet, cursing. "She's a witch," he spat, rallying his men to retreat. They stumbled into the trees, the forest swallowing their footsteps. Chaol didn't chase, his job was done. He returned to Myra's side, nuzzling her hand. She knelt, stroking his fur, whispering, "Thank you, my guardian." The cabin stood untouched, a haven preserved. But whispers of this night would spread. The dawn broke softly, painting the forest in hues of gold. Myra's cabin stood serene, as if the night's chaos had been a dream. Chaol rested by the hearth, his silver fur dusted with morning dew. Mira brewed tea, her hands steady, but her mind replayed the bandits' retreat. She knew their kind, greed would drive them to speak, and stories would spread. The forest, her sanctuary, might soon draw curious eyes. In the nearby village, nestled at the forest's edge, the bandits stumbled into the tavern, bruised and shaken. Drogon, nursing a scratched arm, spun a tale of a forest witch guarded by a demon wolf. The villagers, huddled over mugs, listened wide-eyed. Some scoffed, calling it drunken nonsense, but others, familiar with tales of the old woman in the woods, felt a chill. Myra's quiet life had long sparked rumors, herbal remedies, solitary ways, and now this. By midday, the story grew wings. Traders whispered it at the market, children embellished it with ghostly details, and elders nodded knowingly, recalling Myra's kindness when she'd shared herbs for their ailments. "She's no witch," an old baker said. "She's just different." But the tale of the wolf, fierce, loyal, untamed, captivated all. Mira, unaware of the village's chatter, tended her garden, Chaol at her side. She felt the forest's pulse, its quiet strength. The bandits' attack had shaken her, but Chaol's courage steadied her heart. She wondered if more would come, drawn by greed or fear. For now, though, the cabin was safe, their bond unbroken. The village buzzed, and the forest watched, waiting. The forest hummed with life as Mira chopped wood near her cabin, her movement steady despite the previous night's chaos. Chaol lounged nearby, his amber eyes scanning the trees. The air felt heavier now, as if the forest sensed trouble brewing. Mira paused, wiping her brow, and patted Chaol's head. Their bond was her strength, but she knew the bandits' tale would ripple beyond the village, stirring greed in darker hearts. In a shadowed camp miles away, Drogon recounted his humiliation to a new band of outlaws, led by a ruthless figure named Varkis. His eyes gleamed at the mention of a witch with secrets, perhaps gold, perhaps magic. "She's old, alone, but for a beast," Drogon said, his voice bitter. Varkis, calculating, saw opportunity. "We'll take what's hers," he growled, rallying his men. They sharpened blades, plotting a return under cover of night. Mira, sensing a shift in the forest's rhythm, gathered herbs with urgency. She whispered to Kale, "We must be ready." The wolf's ears twitched, as if he understood. She fortified the cabin, barring windows and hiding her few valuables, a locket, a carved wooden bowl. Her heart ached, not for possessions, but for the peace now threatened. As dusk fell, the forest grew silent, birds stilled, winds hushed. Kale's fur bristled, his growl low. Mira lit a single candle, its flame steady in the gathering dark. The outlaws were coming, their steps muffled but deliberate. Varkis led, his greed blinding him to the forest's warnings. Kale rose, his eyes locked on the trees. Mira stood beside him, unafraid. They were not alone. The forest held its breath as twilight cloaked Myra's cabin. Varkis and his outlaws crept through the underbrush, their eyes glinting with greed. They believed the tales of a lone woman and her wolf, easy prey for their numbers. But the forest was no passive witness, it whispered warnings through rustling leaves and snapping twigs. Mira, attuned to its voice, felt the danger closing in. Inside, she banked the fire low, casting long shadows. Kale paced, his silver fur bristling, senses sharp. Myra's hands trembled slightly as she gripped a sturdy staff, not for fighting but for standing her ground. She murmured to Kale, "We've faced worse, haven't we?" His steady gaze answered, their bond a silent vow. Outside, Varkis signaled his men to surround the cabin. They moved with practiced stealth, but the forest betrayed them. An owl hooted sharply, a branch cracked underfoot. Kale's ears flicked, and he slipped to the door, a shadow among shadows. Mira followed, her heart steady despite the odds. She trusted the wolf, the forest, herself. Varkis raised his axe, ready to break the door, when Kale struck. A blur of silver fury, he barreled into the nearest outlaw, who screamed, dropping his blade. The others froze, startled by the wolf's speed. Varkis swung wildly, but Kale dodged, his snarls echoing like thunder. The forest seemed to rise, winds howled, vines tangled boots. Mira stepped forward, staff raised, her voice cutting through the chaos, "Leave, or the forest will claim you." The outlaws hesitated, fear replacing greed. Kale lunged again, and panic took hold. They weren't facing an old woman alone, the forest roared with life as Varkis's men stumbled in chaos, Kale's snarls driving them back. The wolf was relentless, his silver form a whirlwind of teeth and claws, darting between the outlaws. Varkis, his face twisted with rage, swung his axe, but Kale was too swift, leaping aside as the blade struck a tree, splintering bark. The forest itself seemed to fight, roots tripped the intruders, branches clawed at their cloaks. Mira stood firm on her porch, staff in hand, her eyes fierce with resolve. "Which?" Varkis spat, rallying his men. But their courage faltered as Kale pinned another outlaw, his growl vibrating through the clearing. Myra's voice rang out, steady and commanding, "This is my home. Leave, or you'll answer to more than my guardian." The forest echoed her words, winds howling, leaves swirling like a storm. The outlaws, battered and terrified, broke ranks. One fled into the trees, screaming as shadows seemed to chase him. Another dropped his weapon, pleading for mercy. Varkis, pride wounded, hesitated, but Kale's amber eyes locked onto him, unyielding. With a curse, he turned and ran, his men scrambling after him. The forest swallowed their retreat, their footsteps fading into silence. Mira exhaled, her grip loosening on the staff. Kale returned, nuzzling her hand, his warmth easing her tension. She knelt, whispering, "You brave soul." The cabin stood untouched, the night calm once more. But Mira knew the tales would grow, stories of a woman and her wolf, guardians of the forest's heart. Peace returned, but the village would soon buzz anew. Morning light filtered through the forest, bathing Myra's cabin in a golden glow. The air was crisp, the chaos of the night before a fading memory. Mira swept her porch, Kale sprawled nearby, his silver fur catching the sun. The forest hummed with life, birds sang, leaves rustled, as if celebrating their victory. Yet Mira sensed the world beyond was stirring, the bandits' tales spreading like wildfire. In the village, the story of the forest witch and her wolf grew larger with each telling. Varkis, nursing wounds and pride, spoke of a woman who commanded the wild, her beast a demon of the woods. Villagers gathered, some fearful, others awestruck. A young girl, who once received Myra's herbs for a fever, whispered, "She's no witch, she's kind." Her words sparked debate, but the legend took hold. Travelers carried the tale to distant towns, embellishing it with magic and mystery. Mira became a figure of wonder, a solitary woman, fierce and untamed, protected by a wolf who answered her call. Some called her a guardian spirit, others a sorceress. None dared approach her cabin uninvited. Mira, unaware of her growing fame, tended her garden, Kale at her side. She felt the forest's pulse, its gratitude for her care. "We're safe for now," she told Kale, scratching his ears. But she knew curiosity might draw visitors, some kind, some not. She prepared, strengthening her bond with the forest and Kale, her unwavering ally. The cabin stood as a beacon of trust, a testament to their strength. The legend of Mira and Kale was born, etched in the forest's heart. Years passed, and Myra's cabin remained a sanctuary, its walls weathered but warm. Kale, now graying at the muzzle, still guarded her side, his amber eyes sharp. The forest thrived, its secrets safe under their watch. The legend of the forest witch and her wolf had grown, drawing travelers to the wood's edge. Some sought Myra's herbs, others her wisdom, but all respected the bond between woman and wolf. Villagers no longer feared her. Children left flowers at the forest's edge, gifts for the Lady of the Woods. Mira welcomed the kind-hearted, sharing teas and stories, Kale resting nearby, a gentle giant to those who meant no harm. The bandits never returned, their tales of terror fading into cautionary whispers. The forest, alive with its own will, protected its own point. One evening, as stars lit the sky, Mira sat with Kale by the fire. Her hands, worn by time, stroked his fur. "We've done well, haven't we?" she murmured. Kale's eyes met hers, their bond unspoken but eternal. The forest sighed, its branches swaying in approval. Myra's heart was full, not lonely, but whole, rooted in trust and care. The legend endured, inspiring songs and tales of a woman who tamed the wild not with magic, but with kindness. Her cabin became a symbol of resilience, a place where strength and compassion intertwined. Mira and Kale lived out their days in peace, the forest their eternal home. As the fire crackled, the world beyond carried their story, a reminder that no one is truly alone when they have love and courage. If this tale moved you, smash that like button, subscribe, and share for more epic stories.